Since the very beginning of Rick and Morty, the opening title sequence has been the source of great mystery and misdirection, teasing fans with some sequences that never have or never will happen in the history of the show. And today I want to analyze every single opening and talk about the hidden references and Easter eggs that are hiding behind the opening scenes. And during that, make sure to turn on the notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Let's start with the first opening. The first 12 seconds of every opening are the same. The eyeball and the 3 + 3 = 6 that we can see going across the screen are a reference to the opening of the Twilight Zone and the telephone booth in the opening of Doctor Who. After that, we can see Rick and Morty running from some evil frog-like aliens. Rick opens a portal and escapes, but Morty trips and is left behind and attacked. For a really long time, a lot of people were wondering what was the fate of this Morty and why Rick left him behind. Rick's ruthless choice of leaving Morty behind made a lot of people assume that this Morty was the evil Morty, one of the main antagonists of the series, who somehow managed to survive these evil frog-like aliens. Because of Rick's abandonment, he decided to take revenge on his grandfather, who let him die there. However, this scene is explained very well in the comics. In the 49th chapter of the original Rick and Morty comics, Rick and Morty crashed on some planet which somehow locked Rick in a time loop. However, given Rick's portal gun, he and Morty are able to visit anywhere in the galaxy, and Rick embraces the functional immortality and lack of consequences to learn and do as much as possible, safe in the knowledge that he'll always start the day again. It's on one of these consequence-free days that Rick and Morty seemingly experience the adventure we all see in the show's credits, with Rick escaping through a portal while a fallen Morty is approached by frog-like monsters. The moment is literally a single panel, taking place between days in which Rick tortures Jerry and goes on a bender at Blips and Chits, but functionally answers every question we have asked about the moment. The Morty being consumed is indeed the regular Morty, Morty Prime, but it happened during a time loop that was subsequently closed, meaning he doesn't remember the experience. Rick also knew that Morty would be reborn the next day, explaining why he allows Morty to die when he's risked his life to save him before. This pretty much explains everything, and I hope now everyone will know the truth behind this iconic scene. Unlike Rick and Morty running from some evil frog-like aliens, the next scene, Jerry shooting the Cronenbergs, was directly from the episode Rick Potion number 9, which was the 6th episode of the first season. I don't think I need to explain this scene since I think everyone knows what happened there. The next scene is Jerry helping Morty with his homework and then his face falling off, revealing him to be a robot. Morty is seen coming into the room in the background and Rick stops him and takes him the other way. Unfortunately, this scene was never shown in the series, which left a lot of people wondering what was happening there. This Morty has not made his debut in the comics either, but lucky for us, he made his debut in the official Rick and Morty game Pocket Mortys. In that game, it is revealed that his name is Animatronic Morty. His character guide says that this Morty is one of the last original Morty bots left from the uprising that's still functioning. It's impossible to say how many innocent lives he took that day. As we can see, this Morty is pretty ruthless, which makes me think how he even ended up in other Morty's universe and why he was replacing his universe's Morty to do very boring tasks like doing homework. I hope we'll see him in the series or in the comics at some point in the future. The next scene was Rick and Morty being chased by the evil clones of Beth, Jerry, and Summer from the Me Seeks and Destroy episode, which was the 5th episode of the first season. That scene is the intro scene of that episode, and Barry, Jeth, and Summer are possessed by demonic alien spirits from another dimension's future. Even though they were not his real family, they looked exactly like them, which made it extremely difficult for Morty to finish them. I wonder if we have ever seen these alien demon spirits in the series, and if we did, when was that? Anyway, in the next scene, Jerry is trying to give birth to an alien baby who possessed his body, while Summer and Morty are holding some laser guns waiting for it to come out. This scene was never animated, and I think it will remain like that. When they did the pilot episode, there was no season to take scenes from, they just made up scenes for the intro. When the season was commissioned, some of the intro scenes were replaced by frantic, crazy scenes from the series, and some were just made up to be funny. Man Gives Birth is a pretty funny scene that's been in a ton of shows. Just because it's funny for 5 seconds doesn't mean they can make a good Rick and Morty episode around it. However, this scene reminded me of Wasp Rick's universe, so who knows, maybe there is some kind of connection in that. Unlike the Jerry giving birth scene, the next scene appeared in the series, and that is when Hepatitis A confronting Morty and Annie from the Anatomy Park episode, which is the 3rd episode of the first season. In that scene, Morty and Annie are almost eaten by Hepatitis A, but Hepatitis C comes to their rescue. continue. And the final scene of every intro is Rick, Morty, and Summer being chased by a Cthulhu in Rick's space cruiser, while Summer is seen holding, presumably, the Cthulhu's baby. A lot of people have been wondering as to what happened in this scene. Rick and Morty Season 6 has been appending some of the show's most long-established routines, from pairing new characters to taking away much of Rick's almost godlike abilities. However, one scene from Season 6 saw Rick and Morty offer a throwback to a formative part of the show's lore as Rick offhandedly explained a famous scene from the opening credits. In Rick and Morty's Jurassic Mort, Season 6, Episode 6, Rick tries to use the portal gun only for a Cthulhu-inspired monster that looks like the one from Rick and Morty's opening credits sequence to appear through it. Rick closed the portal and stated that this happens sometimes. As such, it seems the intro sequence's scene, although the moment has never been seen in the show proper, must take place in whatever Lovecraftian reality the portal gun can sometimes accidentally arrive in. This, in turn, explains the iconic scene in the intro. However, this scene is nowhere near as satisfying as we all expected it to be, and fortunately for us, the whole deal between the Smith family and Cthulhu has been explained in the Rick and Morty vs. Cthulhu comics. As it turns out, over the course of the series, the Smith family have each been merged with a major Lovecraft story, and the comic ends with Morty impregnated with the star seed of Cthulhu's daughter, Cthulhu, aka Kathy. Morty met Kathy during his stay in Innsmouth, but it turns out their connection was a sham. Cthulhu was actually sent to impregnate Morty, birthing the Cthulhu mythos fully into the Rick and Morty continuity in order to ensure further crossover stories. In the issue's epilogue, fans see the original Cthulhu chase from the show's opening as Grandpa Cthulhu pursues the Smiths, seeking to reclaim Morty's monstrous child. Not only does this explain what's happening in the credits clip, but it gives it new meaning. Cthulhu's existence in the credits is a sign that the mythos, embodied by Azathoth, the Lord of All, won its metatextual battle with Rick, spreading its influence to the Rick and Morty franchise in order to continue Cthulhu's pop culture dominance. Just like the rest of the openings, the second opening also starts with Morty and Rick being chased by frog-like aliens. Since I have already covered that, I will go into the next scene. In the next scene, Morty, Jerry, Beth, and Summer are eating dinner at the table, and then Rick breaks through the floor in a drill machine, releasing giant mole people onto the surface. I believe this scene was a reference to the ending of The Incredibles, as it reminded me of the ending of that movie when a new villain, the Underminer, appears. The Incredibles, including Jack, don their masks, ready to battle the new foe. The next scene is taken from the Look Who's Purging Now episode, which is the 9th episode of the second season. The scene is followed by the scene where Jerry is trapped in some kind of water capsule and Rick releases an alien monster in there with him. Unfortunately, we never find out what happened to Jerry, and I really want to see it happening someday, because an episode which is primarily focused on Jerry, Rick, and Morty is always interesting and fun to see. The next scene was from one of my favorite episodes, which is the 4th episode of the second season. In that scene, Summer, Rick, and Mr. Beauregard are jumping on the bed and having a pillow fight, who later are disrupted by the sleepy Gary, who tells them that some people are trying to sleep. The final original scene of the second opening is Rick and some alternate Ricks, or clones of himself, working in a spaceship. One of the Ricks gets electrocuted and killed. The other Ricks just blatantly acknowledge it and then continue to work without him. I do not think we have ever seen any of these Ricks, except the one who is wearing a yellow shirt. He first appears in the episode Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind, where he is standing around with his Morty and talking with a guard Rick. The captured Rick and Morty of Dimension C-137 are escorted past them on their way to the Council of Ricks. He was not present at the trial. Yellow Shirt Rick briefly appeared in Rick's memories in Rick Mirai Jack, where he is shown being shot. Due to this death and the death shown in the Season 2 intro, it is possible that there are multiple Yellow Shirt Ricks, or a singular Yellow Shirt Rick that has access to his own Operation Phoenix. The first original scene from the third opening is a very interesting one. In that scene, we can see Summer and a cyborg Summer in a space station hiding behind a wall, equipped with armor and weaponry, preparing to attack Rick and a Gromflamite who are having a conversation in the hallway. This is a very intriguing scene. We have never seen any interesting versions of Summer Smith beside Night Summer. I wish we learned about her and what her origins are. I guess this was an original idea of Space Beth, because if we look at her, she somewhat resembles Space Beth, plus the concept of Beth's clone was introduced in that season, and I guess Cyborg Summer was scrapped in favor of Space Beth. But I still have some hope that Cyborg Summer will appear at some point in the future, since Summer seems to be the only member of the Smith family who doesn't have a strong counterpart, and she is perfect for that role, especially since her design is already amazingly well done. The next scene is from the 7th episode of the third season. Slick Morty, Fat Morty, Glasses Morty, and Lizard Lizard Morty are all sneaking out of school in an attempt to take some mega fruit, only to be chased off into a stream by an angry mega fruit farmer Rick and his robot dog. The next scene is also from the episode. It is from the episode 3 to be exact. That scene is the post-credit scene of the Pickle Rick episode. In the post-credit scene, Rick and Morty are tied up to a giant piano and are about to be killed by Concerto. Rick says how he is sorry for getting Morty into this situation and believes that they will definitely die. Unpredictably, Jaguar appears, kills Concerto, and leaves. Morty asks who that was and Rick replies, "That, Morty, is why you don't go to therapy." I wish I could show you this scene fully, but due to YouTube's policy, I have to blur some parts of it. In that scene, Concerto was the main villain. He is a music-related villain who attempted to crush Rick and Morty with the hammers on a giant piano. He was killed by Jaguar before he could do any harm to Rick and Morty. He also killed 3 other people. He has piano teeth and piano hammer elbows. I think he had one of the best designs in the whole series, and I wish we saw more of him. The final original scene from the 3rd season is of Rick in a store browsing through a section of Mortys packaged like toy action figures. He decides between 2 Mortys, and when choosing one, he carelessly leaves the other behind, making him fall face flat on the ground. In that scene, we can see several interesting Easter eggs, such as Plumbus, an all-purpose home device, and Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda. We don't know exactly where Rick is, but this place reminds me of the Brick and Mortuary store that was introduced in the 56th chapter of the original Rick and Morty comics. This store is especially designed for Rick and Morty and is full of items that the duo needs. This is a very cool and interesting concept, and I hope we'll see it in the show at some point in the future. The first scene of the 4th opening is Rick falling in the atmosphere of a planet as a space battle against a giant mutated Morty commences. We never learned what happened to this Morty and why he is mutated, but it seems he threatened the whole planet. We can also see that some kind of war is going on around him, and I wonder how him and Rick are involved in that. The scene is from the 5th episode of the 4th season. In that scene, a strange, small, Terminator-esque creature falls through a blue portal from the ceiling and starts beating up a bunch of red-eyed snakes in the garage. This humanoid snake robot arrives to tell the family, but Beth crushes him to death in a panic. This was one of the funniest moments in the whole show. I did not really expect this little guy to go out this quickly this way. The next scene is from the next episode, episode 5, The Never Ricking Morty. In that episode, Morty, hooked up to an IV, feels faint and is pulled out of the reality he was in by a beat-up looking Rick. Rick is then grabbed by a muscular man who starts punching him in the face. A lot of people are hating that episode because of its weird relationship to the whole show's canonicity, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm happy that it made it into the opening scene. We can see a giant naked Morty in the next scene who appears out of the sea of an alien planet, among the same race as Snoopy bloopers, and is offered a chained-up maiden as a sacrifice. I wonder what the hell just happened there. Why is Morty a giant? Why is he considered as a god? And how did he end up on the Snoopy bloopers planet? And where the hell is Rick during all of this? Snoopy bloopers made their debut in the 5th episode of the previous season, and they turned out to be quite friendly and acquainted to Rick, welcoming him with free food and drink. The Snoopy bloopers who appeared in that episode seem to be the good friends of Rick, which makes me doubtful that Rick was behind all of that, but this creates more questions as to, if not Rick, who created all of this mess. I hope we'll hear someday about that, either in the comics or the series. In the next scene, we see Rick, Beth, Summer, and Morty run into the kitchen to escape a 2-headed goose. Rick presses a switch on the refrigerator, revealing a series of cool guns. It seems this scene was the reference to the Untitled Goose Game. In that game, you play as a goose, surprisingly, who has kindly been nicknamed Horrible Goose, that Mean Goose, and Bastard Goose by the internet. You follow simple objectives and annoy as many people as you can while doing so. You can steal, distract, sneak, and, most importantly of all, you can honk. And it seems this goose somehow made its appearance in the show, and Rick and the whole family rightfully are terrified. The 5th opening begins very violently. Rick lights up a candle on a cake with the family at the dinner table. Their heads suddenly explode off of their bodies and grow spider-like legs as they roam around the room. As you can imagine, this scene was very violent, and I don't think I can show it due to YouTube's policy. I do not remember if we've seen anything like that in the series, and hope someday we will learn what happened to them. The next scene is from the 5th episode of the 5th season. In that episode, Morty and Summer try to impress him with interdimensional cable and wine, but he is instead taken with Rick's car. The car's defense system comes online when they try to take it, but Summer and Morty convince it that Rick is in danger and they need to take it to go save him. They fly around the universe showing Bruce different planets and smashing up anthropomorphic mailbox aliens called Mailboxians with a baseball bat. The next scene was also from the series, from the 7th episode to be exact. In that scene, the family are wearing Voltron-esque suits at the dinner table as Rick presses a button on his watch, revealing several secret tunnels in the room as each member of the family enters one. In the next scene, we see one of the best characters from the whole series, Noob Noob, however, not in good conditions. In that scene, Rick performs CPR on a dying Noob Noob in a bloody room. Even though Rick despises the Vindicators, it seems he worked with them again, most likely because of Morty, who is a huge fan of them. However, it seems someone attacked their base, which resulted in Noob Noob being mortally wounded. I assume that someone attacked their base because I really doubt that they would take Noob Noob in an actual mission. I wish we saw the Vindicators again. The last time we saw them, almost the whole team was disbanded, and I think it would be cool to see the new members of the team. I wonder if Noob Noob finally made it into the team, and what is the relationship between the Vindicators and the Council of Orbship. Hope the multiverse of Rick and Morty heroes will be expanded on someday because I think it has a lot of potential. Suspiciously enough, in that opening, we see Morty who plays golf at a golf course as people closely watch. As Morty hits the ball into the hole with his club, people cheer as Morty smiles and waves at them. This is very strange because we rarely see Morty as calm as this. He is often depicted as an anxious kid, especially around a lot of people, and seeing him like this is truly suspicious. It reminded me of the 6th episode of the 3rd season where Rick and Morty removed toxic versions of themselves and were left calm and confident. Maybe they went to the spa again, and this is the reason why Morty looks so confident in this scene. In the first original scene of the 6th season, we can see Rick and Summer flying away from a giant flying squirrel while wearing the suits with the same functionality as the squirrel's patagium. Both fly through a circular mountain while the squirrel gets its head stuck in it. This scene was very strange because the giant squirrel for some reason follows Summer, not Rick. I wonder what she did that made the squirrel follow only her. In the next scene, we can see Rick and Morty both respectively dressed as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, standing on the street of what seems to be 1800s London, looking at Jack the Ripper holding a bloodied knife who tips off his hat to them. We can see one of Jack's victims on the left side of the screen. This scene somewhat happened in the 7th episode of the 6th season, but I wish we saw the whole episode based on that setting. When you think about it, we never saw an episode dedicated to the classic Victorian era, and I think it would be very cool and interesting to see Rick and Morty in that kind of environment. I was very disappointed that the scene lasted only seconds, but my hopes are still on that we will someday get an episode dedicated to that. We can see Summer, Beth, and Space Beth in the next scene who walk among the crowd of people in what seems to be New York City holding a giant Rick balloon, referencing Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, while Morty dangles in the air in fear. It is a very nice detail as to how Rick always pulls him along and gets him in trouble. The next scene is from the 8th episode of the 6th season. In that scene, we can see Jerry who reflects laser attacks while wearing a mech suit before flying off through a hole in the building he was in. And the final scene of the intro is Morty who is a stick of butter being dropped on a frying pan with 2 eggs slowly melting as he screams in horror. I was very disappointed that we did not see this scene animated. I believed up until the final episode that we would see this animated, but as all of you know, we did not, and I am pretty bummed about that. Intro scenes always intrigued me, and I really enjoyed doing this video. Make sure to turn on the notifications button so you don't miss any future videos of Rick and Morty. Hope you all had a great day. Lonnie Brooks out. Bye.